Hey, Chris, good to have you here.
Hey, Tony, thanks for setting this up. I always love these conversations.
Yeah, I never know where they're going to go, although, we do some pre-planning. But I think the one reason what this came up was as a marketing agency working for moving and storage companies and other service contractors as well, but moving and storage companies in particular, they're always chasing the lead. I can buy a lead here. You can get me a lead there. Let's get leads. Let's get new business. And the fact of the matter is that we know that when a moving and storage company scales, it's not just about getting more leads, although that's part of it. It's also about a few other things, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
Sure.
So we'll talk a little bit about some of the relationships that those moving and storage companies we've helped scale. We've helped form some of these relationships, how to close a higher percentage of jobs and what that is, what that means, and how that works, and kind of how a CRM fits into that to help scale that and automate a few things to make that stuff happen. And then if everybody sticks around, whoever sticks around, we've got a really cool prize to give away at the end worth a couple of grand, which is great. So let's get started.
Do it.
Anything you'd like to add before we get going?
No, I think where you're at with this in leads and what you were talking about, lead chasing, I think that even before you get into that part, like the lead chasing trap, most owners fall into a cycle of paying for leads and they don't have visibility on their ROI, and they don't have a properly structured digital strategy or campaign that includes conversion tracking, call tracking, and a CRM that gives you lead chasing, a transition from lead chasing to demand control.
Yeah.
And, before you even get into that, like the best strategies are built with a company that has clear service zones, profitable service lines, and a capacity plan. And you have to put all those things in place so that you're structurally organized, and then you can leverage the benefits of these leads. But I love, anytime I see Dwight Schrute on my screen, I'm gonna be happy. So.
He's serious but funny all at once. Yeah. So the fact of the matter is you're always going to be looking for more leads, but they're not all the same.
Right.
The sooner you figure that out, and having a structured system and process behind processing those leads as they come in, as you get them, will help you tell which ones are the same or not. So love this conversation. So if we step outside of the idea of let's go get leads, this conversation is really about let's go get relationship. And you can read what's on the screen here, but there are really 4 critical sets of relationships or people you should tap into as a moving and storage company if you haven't already, or if you only have 1 or 2 of these. You should probably start looking at this. And this is and can be as important a marketing channel or a way to get leads through a channel as as paid advertising. And we'll get into a little bit of that. But if you think about moving and storage, by the way, it's not just the people running these types of business, like a staging company or, the director at a senior living facility or real estate rental folks. It's not just about that. It's also about the care and feeding of these, these relationships. And we'll get into a little bit of that as well. But as you look at this list or this diagram here, moving and storage impacts a lot of people's lives. In different places in different times. And these are other people or other businesses that do the same. What do you think, when I first showed this to you, Chris, what did you think about these types of relationships?
Yeah. Where you're starting with this makes perfect sense. Like we all know that in the quality of lead, a referral is going to be more powerful than say an ad click. Right. An ad click will generate those leads, but a referral is going to have weight because there's a trust and a relationship between the person that's referring. And so now when we build these relationships with these other types of companies, they have their referral base, right? And that trust and relationship built. So now we're doing it at scale. Now you're doing it en masse. And instead of getting one referral from, hey, Tony used this one moving company. And I mentioned to my friend, Tony, hey, I'm going to be moving soon. He says, yeah, you should call these guys. Great. I probably will call those guys. But if Tony knows thousands of people that he gets a chance to say that to, then I really want to be close with Tony and have that relationship and build that trust. So I also love what you said too about how this industry, the moving and storage industry, impacts so many people at different stages of their lives. You know, you might be moving to college and you've got that type of move, especially if you're going cross country or you're doing, you know, a long distance move. As your career changes, as you escalate there, as I'm moving houses, or if I start flipping houses, or I get into the real estate market, all of those things up until the point where I retire and I'm ready to downsize and then, you know, get rid of and streamline my stuff, all the different points of these relationships, they have so much impact on a moving and storage business, having these type of, you know, being able to insert themselves in these different points. So I love that you laid it out this clearly.
You know, it's funny you mentioned the word trust because, you know, for a guy who's a dad who has a family that moves his house, you know, needs to move from, like, we built a new house, and so we needed to move from that current home to a rental, then from the rental to our new house. You know, that's one type of relationship and trust, and it's relatively transactional, but I used the same moving company, one of our clients, a couple of times when I did it, because I trusted, you know, what they do. Well, when you're building referral relationships, it's trust in that, you know, their client base, you know, their services, you know, how they interact. And a lot of that is doing some upfront research on who, like a staging, let's just start with the top, you know, a staging company. A staging company might be run by, you know, one person that has some assistants that helps them stage things for homes for sale, for real estate agents. There's a lot of real estate agents that also own staging companies, by the way, which is kind of an interesting dynamic. So if you could find one of those people and form a relationship, like, hey, you can trust us to be white glove with all your staging gear, I'll call it. That's probably not what they call it. But we're not going to break stuff. Right. We're going to handle it with care. We know that this is part of your, how you make your money, the artistic way you stage, you know, stage homes, or from a rental side, it's, hey, if you have people moving in or out of your rentals, whether you're a person that owns a handful of rentals as an investment, or you're a property management company that might manage, you know, dozens of different properties, multifamily properties. For them, you're a different type of resource. Yes, you want to white glove it, but maybe for them, it's like, oh, we know your average move is 2 to 3 bedroom apartment. That's different than, we know that you're staging businesses or staging homes to help sell. That's a whole different conversation. And so it's not a one size fits all with these types of relationships, and it's trust, right? Senior living, that's a whole different ball of wax, whole different set of, you know, those are people going through, could be tough times in terms of, you know, moving their parent into a senior living facility, or it just is a different time in your life, but it's all about trust and relationships. You're not after the sale. Those will come if you build good relationships.
Yeah. So people buy trust. That's, I mean, they buy trust and the right type of branding and the right type of relationship that connects with these. That's what builds that. You know, and it all speaks to all of the things that, you know, for a moving company, the trucks, the website, the uniforms, their ads, they all speak to building trust, and people are letting you move their lives, you know, right. In the senior living facility, like if I'm, you know, moving my mom or my grandma there, like, you know, I'm emotionally attached to that transaction. Yeah. And, you know, so having a company that I trust right up front, that I've already built this relationship, or that somebody refers to me because they've built that relationship. You know, if I had a medical provider that I knew and had worked with for a long time, and they said, listen, this is where I would put my mom, and this is the company I would trust to move her there. That's powerful. That means something to me. And that that means that now I'm moving from being a number as a lead to the right type of lead.
It's interesting. We'll get into some of the math of these relationships. The goal is really to drive down the cost and scale sale. That's the end result of building these relationships. And we'll walk through some math here because we've done this over the years. But what's interesting to me is, as a moving and storage company owner, let's say, you really have to see yourself as more than just a bunch of guys, schlepping around, somebody else's belonging. You have to think about it differently than that. And you have to treat yourself that way. You have to talk about it that way. Now, in reality, is that what you're doing? Well, of course. Yeah, that is your job, moving people's stuff around. But communicating in a way to people and internally with your, with your team, that this isn't just about, oh, we're the poor laborer, we've got, take pride in what you're doing because you're moving people's lives.
Yeah.
So in every market, an average job size is different. And with every moving and storage company, an average job size is different. So here in Seattle versus, let's say, I was talking to a guy in San Diego yesterday, versus, let's say, Boston or, Midwest, the average job size differs, I think in our experience, it's been anywhere between 600 and 1,800. These are local moves, by the way. Right. These aren't regional moves. Regional moves or long distance moves are could grow a lot more than that. So we're talking local moves. But what we do know is that when you start to get a good referral partner, one of those in one of those industries gives you about 7 jobs a year. Now, at about $1,400 an average job size. Now, this is mostly coming from the Pacific Northwest, although some Carolina and Arizona stuff, this data. So as you look at that, take that into account. But it's one relationship at a time, and that's really how you should look at it. And you get one, then if you can get 4 at that average, that's almost $40K a year. Mm-hmm. If you get 10 of these, it's almost $100K a year. Now, to go get 70 jobs a year elsewhere, this you might be able to get this and for sure be able to get this with concerted effort of marketing, email marketing, and connections with these referral partners.
Sure.
And I just wanted to throw this math in there. I don't know if you have anything necessarily to comment on here, Chris, but this is the way you got to think about it, is my whole point. And whether in your market, your average job size is already 1,400 and you're looking at that going, oh, well, that's not a big deal. Well, the point here is having these referral relationships drives down cost and helps you scale without a lot of effort once you get a referral program rolling.
Yeah. And I think what you're talking about there is you're driving down your cost per job or your cost of acquisition for a job.
That's right.
If you're doing it this way, as opposed to when you're in growth mode and startup and growth mode, then you're spending more per lead and per job. Your cost of acquisition is higher. If you can get these moving, then you're driving down that cost, and that's expanding your margins without anything else changing, just by lowering that cost.
Yeah. So as we go in, it's like, okay, well, how do we do this? Well, what we know, a proven way to do it is through LinkedIn, is to form these relationships. And so that means tuning up your personal profile. It means tuning up your company profile on LinkedIn. And it also means creating posts out there on LinkedIn. What's interesting about moving and storage is that you can create a certain set of content and then disseminate that or move that or place that in different places on the internet. So for example, I know this video of Scott here, that's one that was played on our YouTube channel, on LinkedIn, on their website. Like they used it. I think they may even used it for a TV commercial. But the idea is, if you look professional online, on LinkedIn specifically, then you're ready to start prospecting the folks on LinkedIn.
Right. Yeah. And I think that you touched on something here too. Like when you generate assets, a brand is what is going to build and inspire trust.
Wait,
And
an asset. What do you mean by asset?
like a social video or an infographic or a recording like the video here of Scott. Those type of things can be leveraged across your website, your YouTube channel, your Facebook, Instagram, etc., but in different ways that are maintaining branding, but you might change the tone of the message a little bit that's unique to that channel. And understanding how to do that is one of the biggest hurdles that a company can face, especially when they're trying to structure these things internally, because they'll record a video and it'll be a great video and they'll blast it everywhere, but then it's not set up to really speak to the people that are in these different channels. So, having a link content that's geared towards LinkedIn, that's a professional relationship building, especially between organizations, there's a little different language that you would use there versus your Instagram reel that you're using for retargeting.
Right. So I did a little research and I just typed, in the upper left-hand corner here, you see I typed in home staging. Now this happens to be in Washington State, which is where Fannit's based. I'm here. You're in Detroit. Jackie's in Denver. Tyler's in Texas. So we've got people all over the place. So this could differ, but I just did it for Washington State. I could have done it nationally, but I just kind of, home staging. So you'll have profiles that come up. If you've never done LinkedIn prospecting before, the whole idea is to build connections and then be able to communicate with those connections. So there's a way to do that. If you haven't done it before, probably the first place to start is getting a premium account with Sales Navigator. Sales Navigator is the piece of LinkedIn that allows you to do searches. So, but you can do searches and get these lists without Sales Navigator. So I shouldn't really put it in that light. But I just typed in home staging, put it in quotes, and filtered by Washington State. And this is what I got. These are just 3 examples, but 671 results. Senior living. So executive director is like the one you want to contact. So I typed in senior living, I put executive director, and 351 result came about. Real estate rental. So you have a rental manager, you could have a broker. So sometimes, like in this case, Maria down there, real estate agent from the Compass. Compass is the name of their company. So she's a real estate agent. Well, she may have rental because a lot of real estate agents. So when you craft your messaging, your connection requests to these folks, you have to be specific. And so you can have campaigns that go out and reach out to each of these different audiences to form referrals, referral relationships. And, we could get into a lot of detail. In this case, 181. So, 181, 351, 671. What is that? A little over 1,000. So how many referral relationships are you actually going to build that are meaningful? You could probably get 10 out of that if you really worked it. But that's the thing, leads, back to like chasing leads or acquiring leads. It's a huge volume play. Whereas relationships, that's a business relationship, trusted referral partners. You don't have to have too many of those. It's a little bit different mindset when you go to think about it. I just am kind of going to summarize this process a little bit. So as I pull these up, Chris, maybe you can share some thoughts on each step.
Sure.
So one of the first things to do is really get a LinkedIn profile, get a company page, put your logos out there, make it look professional. If you don't know how to do that, obviously Fannit's a company that can help you do that, or your current marketing agency, you can kind of ask them to help you with that.
Yeah. And a couple of things that I would say on this is, as you're starting this, make sure that you do a little brand audit internally, that you look at the messaging that you have, the media that you have, the images that you're using, and because businesses will grow and evolve over time, right? And like you might start the business with taking some screenshots on your iPhone 4, back in the day when you were doing a move, and things may have changed. And now you're using certain filters. You've updated your logo, your header bars and things like that. So just make sure that you do a little brand audit and that you're making all of these things consistent across, and that you're using consistent assets through the messaging, the profile, the company page, so that, because inconsistency can cause some hesitation and a lack of trust from viewers. So getting all that stuff dialed in.
Yeah, no, really good point. So once you have that kind of tidied up, the next thing really to do is create those searches, and you can use the ones I use. You can, fine tune it yourself. And then start making connection.
Yeah. And the one thing that I think you mentioned earlier is that, when you're trying to avoid that lead chasing trap, going for the volume, it's looking for the right connection, the right leads, the right jobs, but the right connections in this part of the process. So taking the time to really think through the filters on that search. What roles, who are the key players in these individual types of businesses and organizations, and making sure that you're applying those filters. There's a lot that you can do to really refine this and make it worth your time and effort.
You bring up an interesting point, because what you're really saying is it's not about volume. It's about talking to the right people. And it's not about, hey, send me leads. We can be a referral source. I mean, it's more about, hey, we'd love to, you ease into a conversation. We'd love to be a trusted referral partner. We know that you don't send people to just any old place. You may not send people right now, so I'm just making you aware of who we are. So there's a way to start conversations and build relationships that is different than running a paid ad that says, I want to move your 4-bedroom, home. We're your trusted moving and storage firm, or company. It's a little bit different communication style, and you should approach it that way. So
100%. And one of the things too that will help in that conversation and presenting that is present the conversation as, what can I do to help you make your business successful? How can I make your staging firm more successful? Would it be that I offer some extra service, that I am more responsive, that, we do things, we'll make this setup in time sensitive? Is it working with a retirement home? How can I make that business successful as a moving and storage company? And if I present it that way, you're already 30% of the way there in a productive conversation.
Yeah, no, it's important. It's a different way of approaching things. So, okay, so what do you do with these connections, right? Well, LinkedIn can be on your phone, or if you're on your laptop in the office, and after you've scheduled some time with, for all your deliveries, all your moves for the day, maybe that's what you're doing, and you're spending time looking at the connections you're making on LinkedIn. Well, one of the things that's important over time is, you want to make that connection on LinkedIn, but you also want to add those connections to your email list. That's a segmented list for referral partners, and even segmented by, staging company contacts, real estate rental. So you want to start to segment your list. You could start out by doing something general, which is like potential referral partners. But the reason you segment lists is because over time, you want to get good at communicating specifically to that audience. And I think you mentioned that a little bit earlier, Chris, but having a monthly, even if it's a, air quotes, newsletter, just to send it out to let people know, for example, oh, here's how we're involved in the community. Or here's the other cool thing. If you have 3 or 4 sets of referral partners, and you also have past customers, and you let people know what's going on with your business, you can also feature your referral partners in that monthly newsletter, as it were. So there's lots of creative ways to make email marketing work. We all get these, a lot of emails, a lot of spam calls. We all get those, but putting some thought into what's value, what are you doing to provide valuable information when you send it out from a moving and storage perspective. It isn't always just like, oh, move. It's kind of like the real estate guy that puts out the, in our area, it's the Seahawks schedule, or our real estate guy will put out a recipe. I know it sounds silly, but it's any way to keep information flowing and the name in front of you.
Yeah, the brand awareness. And then You said something that I was just having a conversation earlier today about, which is segmentation, and really refining that and putting some thought and being intentional about that. Those communications can make all the difference. There's no point in speaking to me as if I own a staging company when I own a retirement facility.
Yeah.
They're very different. But if you use my language about helping, transition people into this next stage of their life, and then that's going to resonate more with me. So that's going to increase the open rate, the click-through rate, and just keep it to the point where, like, yes, these are the people that I want to send opportunities to.
Yeah. Getting in the habit of doing this is really important. And it worked. It absolutely worked. I'll say the last thing, really kind of a more advanced level, is to start to post on your company page and or comment on personal profiles of folks that are in your referral network. Because now other people in their network see your post potentially, or your network on LinkedIn sees their brand. And that's a great way to be reciprocal in providing value into that referral relationship. It's not all about you getting leads from them. And that's what great referral partners do. So, have a process. Here's an example of one. You can simplify it. You can make it even more complicated, but this is kind of the core process we've seen that worked really well in this moving and storage industry. So as we go through here, I want to remind people of what the sales loop is. And when you're generating leads, you're trying to capture demand, right? There's people that need to move. You need to capture demand either through their organic search, or now even AI search, or they're clicking on paid ads, or they're on Angie, or they're out on LinkedIn and they see something, but you're acquiring those leads. And as you get those leads in, you're providing quotes, hopefully fast and accurate, and you're following up with sales. And that's kind of the sales loop. Marketing does this stuff to capture demand and leads, and pass that information on to sales, who then provides a quote and closes business. So one of the things that we see a lot of folks do is they'll just chase the demand side of things, and it's all about leads. But they kind of spend fewer or less time focusing on, if we just increased our sales conversion rate by 5%, that could mean an extra, 50 jobs a year or whatever.
Yep.
And so really digging in on the sales loop and figuring out, where are we leaking opportunity? We know the top players in the moving and storage space do this after they've kind of figured out how to capture leads,
Yeah, I think one of the toughest challenges in a business growing their sales and marketing team as a partnership is, I think back to the movie Glengarry Glen Ross, where in that movie they talked about how weak the leads were, but the sales team had to be so strong. And we've all seen, and I know you and I have seen, these organizations where you might have a team where the marketing team is just not performing. They're not volume of leads, but their sales team is so flipping good that they just close everything. Like, you get me in front of somebody, we're going to close it. Okay. And then you have the other organizations on the other end where the sales team is pretty weak. They don't know how to ask for the business. They don't know how to give the value and communicate that and close the deal. So how do they make up for that? They go for 1,000 leads, just waiting for the ones that they bump into a sale. And, it almost happens like, well, you really can't even screw it up. They were just like coming here, offering me their money, saying, please do this job for me. And when you get to success is when you get both those departments humming really well, talking to each other and forcing each other to improve. And that's when you can start really scaling.
Oh, I love that picture too. So it's funny how many companies we run. And would you say that there's one scenario you run into most often?
Yeah,
those two scenarios, really good sales and not as good marketing, or really good at marketing and not as good at sales.
Yeah, oh gosh, now I thought I did, but now I see I have both of them that I work with, where their team is better, but a lot of times some clients will come to me and they're just like, we need these leads, and that's an indicator to me, not that the marketing system is failing, but that the sales team isn't able to capture a high enough percentage of those leads and close enough. I think I'd say more often than not, it's a weak sales force, but they don't realize that it's weak. So they start with the marketing side, trying to get the volume.
Yeah. They don't have a process in place that gives visibility on the sales loop.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about how you might start to think about it. First of all, it's getting that sales loop, getting visibility on that. Then it's, well, what can you do to increase the sales close rate? And one of the things that I know is true is, retargeting campaigns are really built for getting people who come to your site or come to a page and don't convert into a lead or a quote. So there might be some leakage there. And the reason why this leads to sales is you're just going to give sales more at bat.
Right.
So maybe this is a little bit of a misleader in terms of closing sales rate, but your retargeting definitely gives them more at bats.
It will. And I think the retargeting is a really important part of it, having an omnipresent campaign. We've all seen it lately, especially, you go walking by the house, and if your Amazon device is listening or whatever, and you're like, oh, I need shoes. And then all of a sudden, all you see are shoe ads everywhere you look. You're on Facebook, you got shoe ads. You're on Google, you see shoe ads. You're on your streaming service, you see shoe ads. Your SiriusXM is starting to give you shoe ads. So that is retargeting at its best, because it doesn't necessarily capture the intent, like, okay, I am online right now trying to buy shoes, but it's that reminder that, hey, if you want shoes, this is the place you should be thinking about. And the same thing for a moving and storage, like, yep, I gotta figure out who I'm going to call for this move. And if you say that, and then everywhere you look, you see the same brand, the same moving and storage company, odds are increasing exponentially each time. And that if I see them on Google, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok, all these different places, that's when the magic really starts happening, because the odds of capturing that lead go up dramatically.
So you mentioned a couple of platforms. I'm bringing them up here: Google and Meta, or Google and Facebook.
Yeah.
I remember when I first learned the difference between the two when you're running ad campaign, and it was completely obvious when it's like look, when you're on Google, it's all about the keyword. What are people searching for and typing? By the way, we should probably add a piece here of AI, but we'll not, because people are searching AI now. So,
right.
And we are starting to see traffic come into the websites we manage. So, maybe a updated version, we could talk about AI, but on Google, it's all about keywords, whether you get somebody, a moving company that appears in the map pack, or maybe a blog they wrote in organic. Google's moving to a lot of ads, whether they're Google local service ads or just, text ads. It's all about what you're searching for, the keywords, versus Facebook or Meta and Instagram and those kind of things are all about the audience. Mm-hmm. What is it about that audience? It's geo, it's, affinities, interest level, age, sex, all that stuff. And also converting these is different too. So on Google, it's about a landing page. When you click on it, I search for this, so I'm looking for information. I click on an ad, or I click on an organic, listing. It's all about the page that they land on next. Mm-hmm. Is it aligned with the search that they did and the intent of that search? Versus maybe on Meta, it's more about, I'm inside another app. I'm going to fill out a form right here and now. And then getting those leads from that source. If you have something that isn't automated for follow-up, because, money loves speed, people spending money love speed, you got to have that put together. That's two different ways to think about how you're generating opportunities for sales and being able to get more sales in the door.
Yeah, they're very different platforms. I tend to think of them as like the leaning out and leaning in. Like you said, with Google, it's all about the keywords and you're capturing intent, right? Somebody is actively typing in that keyword saying, this is what I want an answer to. This is the problem I'm trying to solve. Show me the solution. So leaning into trying to find the solution. Social advertisements are more, the people are leaning out, right? They're not actively looking for that right then. They're scrolling. They're doing something completely non-related, but we continue to be there in front of them because we know that they have an interest for whatever reason, if it's a retargeting campaign or if it's a lifestyle thing, if it's a demographic thing, we know that there's some form of interest there. So we're getting that audience match and saying, hey, you're probably the people that would be interested in knowing about this. And we show it to them that way. So kind of the intent versus the interrupt, right? Active solution seeking versus I'm doing something else, but here you are. So maybe I should engage. So those two things are very different strategies, but they both work so well together when you put together this whole system. And that's where you go from a marketing channel to a marketing strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thinking through all of this stuff and being thoughtful and how all the copy and the imagery and the video that people are seeing when they're on these platforms is interesting.
Yeah.
So that gets us into this part, getting a little bit deeper on improving sales rate, because you have to know this other stuff. Are you retargeting? Are you just running on Google? Are you, and we didn't even put Angie on here or other, not promoting those necessarily, but also, people do that.
Right.
Knowing increasing close rate is really knowing a lot about where the lead's coming from and what process do you have to adhere to, when you're getting those opportunities in the door. What kind of there's a few things on screen here, but my big thing is make sure you're not leaking opportunity. And the biggest thing there is if we're bringing leads to you through a certain channel in a certain way, if we or you don't have something set up, like, a lead came in yesterday, I'm responding tomorrow to it, especially moving a storage, that's leaking. You're not getting to it fast enough. So you have to have that. You have to be ready for that.
Yeah. Lead leakage really comes down to, I think you have it here, is know why they're choosing you. So data is your advantage at any point in a market, in a crowded market, and your internal optimizations. And then leveraging that data in a way that makes sense so that you can speak to these people. You don't want to necessarily talk to me like a sales seeker. I responded to a sale or a promotion like, hey, 30% off. Okay. Well, if I'm not calling because I saw 30% off, I'm calling because my friend Tony told me that you guys are the best movers in the area and you're going to take care of my mom and her stuff. Different language, right? Different messaging.
Yeah.
And that's a part where sales has to be nimble. And so the sales system needs to know those things so that they can use those different scripts, those different call tracks, those different language sets. So that's knowing that leveraging that data and having a plan for those different sources that's intentional and thought through. That's what's going to help you also reduce that lead leakage and increase that close rate.
Yeah. So you mentioned sales system, CRM, customer relations management. I'm just, what is a CRM? I think everybody watching this video probably knows what they are. There are a ton of them out there. We'll probably do, I think what I want to do is a review of this, a review of a bunch of CRM systems we know moving and storage companies use that are successful with that. We support a few, and it's all about capturing leads, making sure that it's hooked to whatever assets you have out there. We talked about landing pages. So wherever you're capturing leads, being able to capture those leads and then segment lists of contacts. By the way, this is what I would call a core set of what a CRM does. Then once you have leads, you need to somehow turn those into booked jobs. Now, in moving and storage, that happens usually pretty fast. So there's not a lot of time between when a lead comes in and when they either book a job or schedule, ask for a quote and get a quote. That good moving and storage companies usually have that process down where they can turn that around quickly. But there's communication that goes through that, and sometimes consumers are checking out other options, and so you want to be able to nurture them or communicate with them and remind them, oh yeah, we got your quote in. What did you think? There's some ways to nurture that. And of course, you want to have visibility. And this is where your sales system, kind of that sales loop comes into play. You want to understand how well you're converting those leads into quotes and quotes into booked jobs and revenue. So tracking sales pipeline automation. I'll show you some examples here in a second, but, and then kind of having on the back end, once you have customers, doing email marketing and asking for reviews. So when a job is done, it's completed in the system, and then a request for a Google review goes out. Having that system in place, CRM is critical to making sure that that's going on. Most moving and storage companies we run into have something like this in place, but not all of them have all of the elements in place that we know our top providers do. Anything you want to add or think's important when we're talking about, well, what is this thing called the CRM? Chris?
Well, you touched base on it. You said this word a couple of times, which is system. And one of my personal things for this year is the systemization of processes. That's what's going to create a predictable pipeline as opposed to a key man failure event. So in those scenarios where you have like a great salesperson, and often it's the owner or the founder, right? They're the best. They're the best salespeople for their business. And so when that person finally gets to a point where they take a week off, then the sales system falters. So building a system that has control so that you can insert people. The best sales that you make are the ones that the owner doesn't make anymore, right? They're now into salespeople that can get installed in the system, and you get predictable results. And this allows a framework to be built so that you can insert people in it, and the system will continue to be successful and improve. And there's not a key man failure. There's not a single break point in the chain. So having that is what allows you to, really transform that department into something that can now be scaled and expanded. And now you've got 5 salespeople, you've got 10 salespeople, because they're all following the same process. And you're now looking at things from a macro level where this script performs really well. This email gets a better response. Now you can improve things, and you improve something by 1%. And it has a massive impact.
Yeah. The systematize, or you didn't say systematize, did you say systematize? Systemization. So most everybody knows how to capture lead if they're using their CRM. I just want to make sure everybody knows this is getting really good at using a CRM, whether you're moving storage company or other service contractor type, especially in moving and storage, is an evolutionary process. And meaning it's not just like, oh, we're going to do one project and it's all fixed. If anybody tells you that's the case, you can do a lot with one project, but it's usually, okay, we're going to make sure we're doing this part on leads and this part on sale. Okay, the next thing we know is now we need to add on getting review campaigns. Okay, we're getting review campaigns. Now we need to add on maybe a weekly dashboard look at all the systems. So it is an evolutionary iterative process to get really good at using a CRM.
Process, not an event. You don't arrive there.
Yes. So in these examples, we'll show you kind of using Go High Level, which is a system we know our teams know how to use really well. So off of a landing page, different landing pages, right? In this case, I just grabbed one of our clients, landscape construction clients. So sorry, it's not moving and storage, but same thing, right? Inbound leads go on lists. So you're capturing leads. You have funnels where these leads come into. You communicate differently. We talked about that depending on, in this case, like a lead from a Facebook, or you had an estimate that went out, but now that lead's gone dark, or you're to a point where a job closes and you need to get a testimonial or a referral. So you can start to automate the communication of that stuff and help with the process. If you're doing email marketing, you can see how people are opening and clicking. Obviously, this is case. And then you can build out, like for people that click on certain emails, you can build out workflows that then take that and send them more information because they clicked on something. And so you can get pretty sophisticated. And this is why I think everybody needs to understand the capability of a CRM and know that it's a process, it's not an event. In this case, having the steps or stages in your sales process with a sales pipeline. So if you're looking at new sales, you can start to estimate how much money, how much revenue is in each of the stages that they're in. And you could start to figure out the conversion rate at each stage. So there's a lot you can do with having this. And, if you don't have this, it's probably in a spreadsheet somewhere, or which is fine, to start out with. But and you can do a lot with spreadsheets, but really this is about a system that you're automating over time, so you can then hire people to run the system, versus having to be manually doing it all the time.
Yeah.
So we're coming up on time, and I wanted to give a little bit of chance for Q&A. I don't know, Tyler, if we have any questions out there from anybody, but
let me take a look.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like we have any questions yet.
Okay, excellent. Well, we must have answered all of them. Well, Chris, I really appreciate the conversation. I know you've been working in moving storage space for a long time now. Seen a lot, heard a lot, done a lot. One thing I want to do is let everybody know that, and you kind of tease this out. So if you're moving a storage company and you want us to take a look at your online brand, in other words, your social media, your website, anything that represents you, your Google local business page, and evaluate and let you know what we see. Typically we charge a couple grand for this, but you can scan that QR code or email me at tlail@fannit.com and get that complimentary online business health snapshot, and we'll do that for you for free and send it on over. And if you want to talk about it, we can. But this is a really good value for your time to get this done, and just to see, how am I doing? Maybe you're doing all these things. You're on LinkedIn, you have a website, you're doing social media, you have an Angie's profile, whatever it is. We can scan the internet and grab all of that and evaluate it for you and let you know what we're thinking.
That's a great value. And, a lot of people that come on these and they watch these, Tony, and Tony, thank you for putting this conversation together. I always enjoy talking to you so much about this stuff, and getting a chance to dive a little further into the back end of these tactics. And a lot of people that come on to these, they watch these, they download our ebooks and our white papers and our resources, and they're looking for all the tools that can get them started. And then they get to that middle part where they might founder a little bit and they don't know if what they're doing is working. And so this opportunity to have a connection with you and do this will reveal that. And then more often than not, what they're really looking for is somewhere to get into a place where they can talk to somebody they trust to give them good insights, good action items, and maybe even help take some of this off their plate, as they start getting busy with their team building and their fulfillment. But it's nice to know that you're a resource that can kind of jump in at any one of those stages and at least just point them in the next direction on where they need to go. So thank you for putting that out there, because that's really, really helpful.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, I was just pulling up our website a little bit real quick and letting people know if they want to go to learn. There's a bunch of our on-demand webinars. This one will be posted soon. It'll also be on our YouTube channel. I should probably put up a QR code of our YouTube channel and go subscribe there, because then you can, as a subscriber, you'll start to get regular updates as we put this valuable information out. So Chris, thanks a lot for lending a hand today and lending some insight.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Appreciate you.
All right, we'll see you.
Bye.